Welcome back to a podcast on marketing. I'm your host, Jordan Ogren, and this is a podcast where we talk about marketing. First question, who are you and what do you do?
Hey, Jordan. Thanks for having me. My name is Kyle Lacy. I'm currently SVP of Marketing at Seismic. I've had the pleasure of serving marketing teams at ExactTarget, Salesforce, OpenView Venture Partners, Lessonly, and now Seismic. Most recently, I was CMO at Lessonly. We were acquired by Seismic in August of 2021, and now I run marketing for Seismic. So first off, I'm a father of two. I'm a history buff, husband to one, and I've been in marketing for um, 15, 16 years.
Yeah, your track record is quite, at least from LinkedIn, it's quite extensive and impressive.
LinkedIn
So
makes it look so much better.
No, I don't think so. But I think we'll get into a lot of your story and kind of maybe lessons learned. But one of the questions I enjoy to start off with and just let it see where it takes us is what have you been obsessed with now, most likely in that business marketing realm, but what have you been obsessed with lately? Like what are some things you can't stop geeking out about? You're out to dinner and you just pull up, this, start talking about this. Like, does anything come to your mind of obsessions for you?
Yeah, it's been the same obsession for me forever. I mean, I remember it started when I read a book in college called Emotional Branding by Mark Gobe, and I'm probably butchering his last name. But it's all about the experience. It's all about the experience you have with a product, the experience you have when you touch a Coke bottle, the experience you have when you come to a website, when you walk into a restaurant, when you drive a car. Um, I am, I will forever be obsessed with experiences. I will always think about them. I will get pissed off when I don't think it's a great experience. And I try as much as possible to talk to the team, any team that I'm leading or I'm a part of. That experience is everything. It's the experience is the best story you can tell. So um, examples are if you walk into a restaurant and you're not greeted appropriately, bad experience. If you go to a website and you can't click a phone number to call somebody, bad experience. Really depends on a multitude of different things, but that's what I've always been obsessed with that, always.
And now, how do you define experience? Because I'm going to guess that that is a large word that kind of goes past marketing, because obviously marketing isn't the greeter per se, but bad experience. So, like, how do you define experience, or at least, like, what are some parameters that you use to think better about experience?
It's the set of interactions that a person has with a brand or a company. An experience, and it also can be experiences that you have with another individual. So an experience, like I kind of listed a couple experiences, but it's any touch point that happens across the entire journey. Whether I'm searching for a piece of software, I'm using Yelp to search for a restaurant in Montreal or whatever, whatever I'm doing, it is the combination of those touch points, and you will either have a great experience or you will have a mediocre experience or you will have a terrible experience. And I would argue that mediocre experiences are just as bad as terrible.
Yeah, if it's kind of a vanilla experience, you don't remember it. It's
No, you
not
won't.
something that stands out.
Yep.
So who owns experience inside of an organization? Maybe it's multiple people, but like who owns the kind of the end product of, hey, experience is good or it's miserable?
It depends on the company. You know, I've been in high growth software for um, 12 years. In high growth software, it just depends on who they're interacting with. Like at Seismic, you interact with a sales rep, you interact with the website, you interact with our chat on our website. You potentially could interact with a landing page. You could potentially interact with um, procurement through security. You could interact with a bunch of different things, and then once you buy the product, you're interacting with a different set, right? You're interacting with onboarding, services, customer success. And so think about a consumer product, right? Like you walk into a Warby Parker store, you're interacting with a sales rep. I'm sure they call it something much cooler than sales rep, but like a glasses aficionado. And if you go to the website and chat, you're interacting with a different element. If you call the website
Hmm.
because sunglasses broke or you need a new pair, you're interacting with a different element. So there isn't one set individual that, in my opinion, controls all of it. I do think there's situations where you will have in small businesses, the CEO is the one that is the ultimate sayer. Like a great friend of mine owns a concrete cutting company, and it's his dad. His dad was running it, and he's running it now. And it's all about the CEO's experience with how they interact with their customers, and
Hmm.
they teach their employees about a great experience and treating people right, and all the stuff that values are so important and culture is so important to a lot of these companies. But if you treat your employees right, they're going to treat the customer and prospect right as well.
Hmm. Wow. So this experience is like on the tip, kind of something that you could
It's
feel like you can
everybody's
grasp it.
responsibility.
But
It's
then,
everybody's
yeah,
responsibility.
there's a lot. It's like an iceberg. There's a lot under the kind of, and it's almost started in my mind. I'm always someone who, with strategy diagnose. So do you find that like important is kind of before you can really improve your experience, you have to just understand like where are all these touch points?
Yeah.
Where's the experience at now? Or how do you go about if you come into a company and you're like, I want to improve experience? What are your steps or what are some of those first things the bricks you lay per se?
Well, you need to figure out what the journey is for sure. But there's also you can do low hanging fruit as well, like page load time on the website, contact form,
Hmm.
like the look and feel and the speed at which the page loads. And there's a ton of stuff you can do on the website that is, I mean, software is a little bit easier to talk about because we tend to be a little bit more forward thinking than some of traditional businesses. But a great example is a services company where they don't have the address on their website and their phone number isn't clickable on a phone, or
Hmm.
even lower level than that, your website rendering correctly on a mobile device, right? So
Hmm.
there's tons, but you got to understand the journey, right? Like if you're talking to a plumbing and heating company, or if you're talking to a software company and neither of them have any idea how many mobile users are coming to their website, that's a break of the experience because you have no idea what's happening. You could
Hmm.
be you could take 15 seconds to load on a phone. And so all the money that you're pumping into Google ads to drive people to a website via a mobile device is lost because Google's not going to rank you very high to begin with. Your ads aren't going to perform, and your bounce rate's going to be like 95%.
Hmm. So a good place to start, as you just said, is the low hanging fruit, the simple, easy changes, things that don't take a ton of time. But then as you kind of understand the journey, you want
Yeah.
to have
Oh,
those more impactful points be.
yeah. Let me be more prescriptive. There's two things that you can do tomorrow. Call your customer and ask them how they got to you. And the second one
Hmm.
is have a form or survey the customer fills out that asks them how they found you.
Hmm. That's good.
That's easy,
I've
and
heard
that's
that.
that's the
Yeah.
easiest way. But the easiest way, which all of us should be doing, is talk to the customer.
Yeah, there's just something so hard to like in theory. I've heard everybody on this podcast has mentioned that, and a few have mentioned that second step. But there is just that kind of gap per se from, hey, this is a good idea, working out, eating healthy, to B, I'm going to actually do it.
Yeah.
And that always kind of makes me think of like what are those roadblocks, but that's like a whole different podcast in and of itself, and
Well,
on the experience. But I
if you
was,
think about like working out and eating healthy, you've got to understand the journey to get to where you want to be from a goal perspective. Like I could run and bike an hour a day, but if I eat 5,000 calories a day, then it's the same process. It's like you could have an amazing demand gen campaign. If your landing page breaks, then it doesn't matter. It's a lost
Hmm.
cause.
No, that's definitely, and I feel for marketers, but really everybody, just having the awareness of that journey is so critical to understand where our breaking points or where are the critical points that we really need to almost
Right.
triple down on the experience, because it matters more when someone orders a product and they want to refund it rather than like, oh, our website's flashy and sexy. Okay, cool, but the refund process sucks, and that's
Right.
going to make me never buy again.
Right.
So yeah, definitely get that. So I like to go to a second, very easy question. It's very simple. Everybody gives the same exact prescripted answer, so I'm excited to hear yours. Is what is marketing for? Like, what is the job that marketing should get done inside of a company? Just a definition of marketing could be a simpler way. Like, what is your definition for marketing?
My definition for marketing.
Yeah, like if an alien lands and they're like, Kyle, what do you do? I want to know what this thing called marketing is. We could use it back on my planet. What's the job of it? Like, what is it for?
I would say creatively differentiating a product or service to generate revenue.
Hmm. And that last part's key, right?
Yeah.
The revenue part. And I think you're big on that marketers need to be either held accountable or they have revenue based goals.
Yeah.
Can you speak more to why you believe in that?
Yeah, and revenue-based goals, it's very much dependent on the business, right? But for somebody in enterprise software or even high velocity software, where the sales cycles are shorter, you either marketing should have a pipeline generated number or they should have a revenue generated number. And the reason why is because it is very hard for marketing to have a seat at the table if you are not revenue oriented. And that's where, I deep down, and what I'm best at is brand marketing. That's what we talked about earlier, like experiences. Like I'll spend 30 minutes fixated on a billboard, just trying to figure out why the hell they did X, Y, or Z. But revenue is what's going to help you do big bets and move major rocks on the brand side. So the reason why I
Hmm.
say creatively differentiate is because you have to the creative component of that is even more important sometimes than the revenue component, but you have to be doing both. You can you
Hmm.
can differentiate all day long, right? You can say, hey, we hire the best people on Stop the Vanilla, right? Or we have the we have the most experience in doing X, Y, or Z, or we are the largest platform, or we're the market leader, or whatever that, like all that stuff. And what truly matters is how you do it creatively, because your competitors can say all that already. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
that's how you
definitely.
differentiate, and
Definitely.
then it has to generate revenue, or you're not going to be able to do any of the cool stuff that keeps creative people around.
Hmm. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And almost that balancing act between some bit of brand marketing and also that performance marketing.
Yeah,
So
right.
as someone, I'm kind of akin to you in that sense of brand marketing is something content kind of comes very easy. Content could be in both categories, but like I would say I'm better at brand marketing. How did you first, like you became aware that, hey, I'm stronger at brand marketing? Like how did you then get better at the other side of it, aka driving revenue rather than just creating kind of cool campaigns with llamas and stuff? Not that that maybe didn't drive any revenue.
Yeah, no, I think it was when I took the VP of marketing role at Westonley, because we were small. They had just raised a Series A. There may be 50 something people at the company. We had 10 people on marketing. And in order for us to survive, marketing had to generate revenue, because marketing generated 70% of the revenue through organic search. It was high velocity sales, still sales led model, but we were responsible for generating the majority of the revenue. So I had to grow into that role and do things that didn't come very naturally to me, because the past 5 years they had spent it more on the content marketing brand side. So
Hmm.
it was taking me out of the Exact Target was large. We IPO'd. We got bought by Salesforce. Salesforce was even larger, so it's still content brand play. There was a pipeline component, but it wasn't a huge driver to the decisions that we made. OpenView is a venture capital firm, very brand oriented. That role was, and then on the Lessonly side, it had to be performance. And as I learned very quickly that if we met a revenue number and we continued to source revenue, I could do things like board games and golden llamas and a user conference, and not worry about our leadership team or the board saying, well, how much revenue did that golden llama generate? Because we have no idea. But I do know that organic search generates 60% of it, or whatever. So
Hmm.
there's you
Hmm.
gotta be able to balance that.
So, what did you think differently or think the same kind of through this transformation when you became at Lessonly? That's like, what was the kind of things you did differently, believe differently, actions like that now you're obviously doing what you said, you're driving kind of revenue performance first, then you can have your time to play, quote unquote, with the brand marketing.
Um, I yeah, I think that I don't think I did anything that differently. I just surrounded myself with a team that were better at it than I was. And I did it,
Hmm.
and the same thing. What we built a content marketing from scratch at Exact Target. This was like 2011, 2012. Nobody was doing this, and I
Wow.
surrounded myself with people that were good with it. Like I had no idea what I was doing. Like it was like, hey, we have these thought leadership pieces. We need to do it for 7 countries and 5 different languages. We should probably figure out how to do this to generate pipe and awareness for the company.
Hmm.
And that's ultimately what I'm learning at Seismic is that you have to surround yourself with people that you feel like you can coach appropriately, that you can serve appropriately, and is better at the job than you are.
Hmm. I love that answer. There's a book called like Who, Not How, and it's basically about rather than trying to figure out how, you should just figure out who can help you. And different maybe with companies is you can't just hire someone yourself. But I mean, for you, it seems that you maybe had the team there, or you started to realize, hey, these are weak spots of mine,
Yeah.
or rather than investing, these courses on all these things, all this time and stuff, why not just hire people or have people around me
Yeah,
that
and
can
it,
do
and
it?
it
I
doesn't
love
have
that.
to be.
That's
I mean, Jordan, you know this. It doesn't have to be a full-time hire. I mean, I've used contractors on the content side, on the design side, that are way better
hmm.
at it than I ever was. That really helped scale what we were trying to do. So that doesn't mean you need to go hire a bunch of specialists, but you have to surround yourself with a community of people that are better at it. And
Hmm.
this, yeah,
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I'm very novice in my business career, but yeah, I definitely would also add that as well. So, what is something that you disagree with? I don't want to say peers, but other marketers on. You see on LinkedIn or you see on these places, people say X, and you're just like, they're wrong on it. Like they're just, why don't they get this? Is there anything that comes to mind, or are you kind of like an even keel? Always kind of meeting people where they're at, splitting the difference rather than having these hardcore contrarian thoughts
I
towards.
it's hard to be. Well, it's actually easy for a lot of people to be contrarian on LinkedIn. Oh man, so there's, I mean, if anybody were to say marketing doesn't need to have a revenue number, then I'd be like, you're crazy. One that comes up quite a bit, which fascinates me, is we have this mentality that sales leaders can lead sales and marketing, but marketing leaders can't lead sales and marketing. So if you're in
Hmm.
like a chief revenue officer as an example, if you're in a board meeting or you're part of a venture capital firm and they're talking about a CRO, somebody to lead sales, marketing, and customer success, they always search for a sales leader. And my opinion is that I would argue that a marketer could be better at the job. Now, everyone disagrees with me. There are very few people. There are very few people that agree with me on that. As long as you surround yourself with people that understand what they're doing, right? And um,
Yeah.
that's probably where I would disagree with people the most. Is that I don't think
So,
they usually just go to a sales leader to do it.
yeah. Yeah, so what are your reasons? You didn't touch those. Like, why do you think a marketer, a CMO, somebody that was a leader in marketing would do better in that CRO seat rather than or opposed to a sales person,
I think
leader?
that, and I am going to generalize, and I'm sorry, and I apologize to whoever's listening, everybody listening, that this is a general statement and not true for everyone. So disclaimer. I believe that marketers have a better ability to measure empathy, creativity, and science than salespeople do. And most sales leaders,
Hmm.
if they're really good, they're very scientific. It's very numbers oriented. It's about headcount capacity. It's about quota attainment. And then secondary, it's kind of like the experience that like the empathy of the buyer. And that's not all sales. I've met plenty of sales leaders that have both, but it tends to come more naturally to marketers. And I feel like the science part of running a revenue team is easier, not easy, but easier to learn than the empathy and creative component. Um, and that's I mean, I haven't ran a sales team. We ran the BDR teams reported into marketing at Lessonly, and I feel like we did that very well because we balanced that stuff, and there was still quota attainment. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how I frame it. I don't have the experience to
Hmm.
say that. I haven't done that though, so it's just me. It's more of an assumption on my part.
Yeah, it's not like a good to great book where you've studied 5,000
No.
CROs and you've studied where they came from and you're
Well, if you
making, but
study
I still
CROs,
think
it's going to
though,
say sales leaders are the best because nobody thinks about a marketing leader doing it, which I think is crazy.
yeah, no, and I think like possibly what you're saying or the underlying premise is just the fact, like, for an example, cops, there is no like one type of cop, but there are a kind of, you could argue, behavioral kind of style or a way of a human that would draw me into becoming
Yeah,
a
sure.
cop per se. Now, if my dad's a cop, that's different. And I think the same is true for marketing sales. Like if I'm a, hey, dude, I wake up at 5 a.m., I go get it, like I'm just nutty. I might be a sales leader because I can have compensation, all
I
these
will
things.
say
Like
though,
there's,
Jordan, I will
there,
say that I actually I don't um, I don't fully agree with that because we have hired um, amazing sales leaders in sales that didn't that it like I think that generalizing a psychological makeup of an individual that would fit really well. Like for example, when everybody says athletes are the best salespeople, just because they have a performance oriented or they're competitive. I've met great athletes that are great salespeople. I've also met amazing kindergarten teachers that turned into great sales leaders. And so the disclaimer at the beginning, I am generalizing. And
sure,
the
sure.
reason why when we hired quite a few teachers coming out of schools into Lessonly to be services and sales and support, and they were the best at the job because they had one thing that most people didn't: empathy. And empathy in
Hmm.
business is very important because it goes back to the experience. So I could talk all day about why marketing should run sales, but it's all my opinion and me being a contrarian.
No, yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate it. And just the point that I was maybe trying to get, and maybe it's not true, is that like I feel I can't back it up by any actual like theory per se, but I do feel that we're pulled towards things that we can just succeed in or we stay in things
Yeah.
because of the way. But that's also if you believe that humans are at all built one way and they kind of change a bit, but they're built a certain way rather than some people are like everybody's amber. They can do anything they want. So that's a kind of conversation or
Yeah.
kind of if you believe one
Yeah.
way
And
or
I
the
and I
other.
think I think what would be interesting, there's probably a study out there. I believe that you can coach and train an individual to be a great salesperson. I don't believe you can coach and push and train somebody to be a great creative. And I think because and I might get just pulverized. I just that doesn't mean coaching and training is not important. I just feel like the a creative element. Yeah, it's the difference between right brain and left brain. And maybe I'm just talking myself into a
Yeah,
hole, but I have very strong opinions about this stuff.
I'm letting you dig it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I think there's truth to that. Now, when you say creative or anybody says creative, that's a
Yeah, it's very
very like
large.
large word. Like there could be some writing that like is like really good and it's like that was creative. I would argue with writing or with anything like that, at least in my field, like I write every day. Like I believe you can through repetition, but I do think like for me to draw beautiful pictures, like it's going to take like possibly 2 to 3 lifetimes just to get
Sure.
me at the level
So
that some graphic
so let
designers are
me
at
let me
now. So
rephr let me
agree with you on
rephrase
that.
then. I do think that it is very dangerous to generalize professions. Um, it's just what normally happens throughout marketing and sales, and what usually, because I think that another side of this is, you look at sales development reps within a software company. I've seen multiple examples where they've gone and done field marketing, or they've gone and done events, or they've gone and done ABM, they've done demand gen, and they haven't necessarily followed that normal track of like sales development rep to account executive sales manager. So everyone is different. You should follow your own path. and you should do whatever the hell you want because we are all very accomplished and creative.
Oh geez, I love the final kind of note just for all the legal purposes. No, I'm just kidding. No, I agree with you, but I do enjoy the contrarian. I'm a contrarian by nature. I like to poke holes in things. And I think that I mean just we won't dive deeper on it just so you don't have to keep giving some sort of a statement. But for me, I'm going to be thinking about this after the podcast because I think it's very fascinating of which is easier, quote unquote, to coach. Is there things that
Sure.
transfer over? I mean, sales and marketing per se are very kind of closely aligned with what end result. So I think that's a fascinating, at least maybe leave me rather than any of the listeners, 3 to 4 of them with that, because that is it's a tough kind of field to go into, but I do think there's
And
some
there's
benefit to
benefits.
think about
And
at minimum.
the best part about this is, we all learn what we want to do, right? Like I taught myself graphic design out of college. I learned marketing. I studied it. It's not like I knew from, I would argue I knew from early age that I wanted to do something like this, but we all learn this stuff. So it's not, I think it's very important to note that you can also unlearn things and learn new things as well.
Yeah, and that skill is probably actually more important. The
Yeah,
relearning,
absolutely.
unlearning to relearn.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I don't want to randomly go there. But so you started your career with graphic design. You founded a company called Brand Swag that changed the name, but I love that name, so I chose that one. And then you got into marketing. Like, what's that story? Like, you start as a graphic designer. My wife's a graphic designer. I never see her getting into marketing. Like, how do you start in graphic? You taught yourself it, and then what makes you make the leap, or was it like a slow, gradual?
No, it wasn't gradual. It was my degree is in marketing. So
Okay.
what happened was I because I'm obsessed with design and I read the, emotional branding and it's just something I've always thought about. I I really wanted to get into music business and we had a record label on campus at Anderson University where I went to school in Anderson, Indiana, and we had artists that we did their albums, we talked about marketing plans, and I taught myself graphic design so I could do
Hmm.
album covers and posters and um, different marketing campaigns for these artists.
Sure.
And so when I graduated, I couldn't get a job for a lot of reasons. I barely
Sure.
graduated college. I had to go a fifth year just to get my GPA above a 2.0. So barely graduated college, got out there in the market, and uh, I did 2 or 3 job interviews, and I got my first job doing graphic design at a very very small marketing agency called Round Peg, and she mentored me. And after like a year and a half, she allowed me to start my agency in her building, and graphic design was just something that I enjoyed, so I just started doing it. So what
Hmm.
happened was I was doing graphic design, we were doing logos, websites, and we started getting into social because at the time, MySpace, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, they were all like nobody had any idea what to do with them. And I was 24 at the time, so I said, "Hey, I mean, I feel like people are listening to me when I talk about it, so I'm just going to start talking about it." And so we did. This does have an ending into not what I do now, but uh, we did training camps basically. So there would be 20 or 30 people would pay for a 6-week course on how to use all these social channels. And in one of the training camps was the neighbor of a Wiley publishing editor, and they were at a party together over a weekend, I guess, and the editor was complaining about how she couldn't find somebody to write a Twitter book. And this person who was at the party said, "Hey, I'm actually in a class with this guy in Indy that's doing this." And that's how I got Twitter Marketing for Dummies. And I wrote that, and then I wrote Branding Yourself, and then wrote Social CRM for Dummies. And because of that Twitter marketing book, we Exact Target was a customer of ours, and we were doing training for Exact Target. And when the business failed because I was 26 and a complete idiot, and I drove it in the ground, that's how I got into Exact Target to do basically content marketing, thought leadership, that type of stuff. So
Hmm.
there's always been a marketing angle. There was the blip of an entrepreneurship angle there for 5 years, but I was definitely young and stupid and didn't know how to run a business, honestly. So
Sure.
that's the
Sure.
long that's the long version of your question.
No, I appreciate that full backstory. I hope that I don't know if you share. I've never heard that from any
Oh,
interviewer
I've
of yours.
shared it. Yeah,
So
I've shared it.
okay,
It's
okay, good.
it's a deep one, and brand swag. I very much love that name. So thank you for
Yeah,
bringing it
that's a
up.
great name. Yeah, it made me think. So I had a question from those books. Like the last one you wrote was in 2012 called Social CRM for Dummies, and Social CRM never became anything, as you noted in
No,
your LinkedIn. So like, why stop? Like this, everybody's pushing out books like Catholic, mothers. Like why babies? Like why'd you stop? Like why was that the last book you ever wrote? Like I feel like I would need to put one more out that's more of like a universal. Like I'm Kyle Lacy. Like this is my story rather than social CRM for
I
dummies. No
it,
offense.
no, I know. I Twitter marketing for dummies and branding yourself was more of a personal brand play and really helped me from a career perspective for sure. Social CRM, as I know in LinkedIn, was we thought it would be something and it wasn't, and we maybe sold 10 books and five of them were me. Um, so after that, I haven't I haven't come across a like branding yourself is I think we're gonna about there might be the fourth edition coming out here shortly. And
Wow.
it's published in Korean and German and French, um, Spanish. So that book is still we're still selling that book today. Um,
Wow.
I haven't found a topic that I am passionate enough about to write a book.
Hmm.
I don't I think that there's a combination of all my I'm better at short, concise pieces of
Yeah.
content. And I'm sure that if I were to gather all of my LinkedIn posts and try to organize them, that I could come up with like 365 days of leadership or some stupid idea. But I haven't come across a topic that drives me to want to write something again.
Hmm.
I've had other book ideas like writing a children's book and stuff like that, but it's not anything that's driving me to do it.
Hmm. Do you think there's this? You can just say no to it, but it's just a thought that popped into my mind. Is you're at a point now where you can't write, quote unquote, a shitty book. Like I can go out and write a book, and like I may say things, and nobody's gonna check me or care much. You're at a very different point in your career, your life, where you're not on a pedestal. You're not, the huge, but you are big enough where like, do you think that plays at all? Of like, if I'm gonna write a book, it needs to be good enough where at my
No,
career point, like I'm not just going to write a book to write it. Okay.
no,
There's not
I
like
don't.
a sunk cost of,
It's more about where do I get the most energy and where do
hmm,
I drive the most value. Um, and there you know there's you a book helps with a lot of things, and it's something that I'm proud to say that I've published three. Like that's something that not a lot of people can say.
yeah.
Um, but in terms of what drives, like I enjoy this type of conversation. I enjoy thinking through problems and challenges that a small business might have more than I would sitting in front of a computer trying to figure out how to write a book, right?
Sure.
So,
Sure. I
but
love
and I
that.
don't care that much about you can read my LinkedIn posts. Like it's not a hey, what will people think about this component? Like I don't really, it's not a thought really.
Hmm. That's good. I feel that's like something I don't worry about, but think about, right? As the further
Sure.
I get and I have more people, companies to my name, it matters if I drop the F bomb just randomly. Now it doesn't really matter, but you get kind of
Yeah, but
what I'm saying.
it's 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 owning who you are and the values you represent. Like I commented, a
Hmm.
good friend of mine is CMO of a one of the faster growing software companies right now, and she made the comment that she curses constantly, and she owns it, and I love her for that, and I love that she does that, and she is secure with who she is and how she approaches life. And if you don't
Hmm.
like it, fine, you don't like it, and that's I
F
think
off.
there,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think that there's I am not as uh, I don't draw the line like that necessarily, but there is value in her saying that. There's value in her being a contrarian. Like there's value in her being herself and different because you know it's it's more meaningful in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, but I do think some people, Gary Vaynerchuk, could settle down on the cussing in front of certain people.
but
But
that's but
yeah,
no,
no,
but that's the point.
it's who
It's
he
him.
is. Yeah, no, I know.
And he's
It's
never
pushed me
changed it.
far away.
And the fact he's a great example. And Andrea Kayal, who's CMO at Electric, is a great example as well. They have never had to change it in order for them to be happy and successful. And if you have to do that to feel that way, fine. But there are some people, and I'd like to include myself in some of that, where um, you know people will make up their own opinions of you no matter what you do. You don't have any control over that. And it's
Hmm.
about what makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled. How do you live the most meaningful existence that you possibly can? And if that means you drop the F-bomb on a podcast, fine. Fine. Now, I know there's people that disagree with me, but that's fine as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Geez, Kyle, I think you forgot you're on the marketing, not a podcast on life, but those are some good life lessons. I love
Marketing
it.
is
I
life.
love it.
There you go.
True. Everything is marketing. All right. Final three questions. We're getting towards that point of the show. So I'm going to ask you three questions, two on marketing business, one not. And then we'll jump into a point where you can kind of share anything you're up to, LinkedIn, or where the 3 to 4 listeners can find you. All right. First question. What is one thing you've changed your mind on in the past 1, 2, 3, 4 years in regards to marketing? So for me, I used to, eat Gary Vaynerchuk's 100 piece of content a day model. And now I'm at a point where I realize that is correct for about 2% of all companies. So what have you changed your mind on in regards to marketing and business, that you believe something different, or maybe even you believe something 3 times harder now because of the time and experience? Does anything come to your mind?
Um, I'm going to credit Dave Gerhardt for this, and I uh, hope it doesn't go to his head. But he made a comment to me one time, and he has a great book out right now, by the way. He made a comment to me one time where he will start reading a book and immediately put it down if he doesn't feel like he's getting anything out of it. And I have always struggled with that. I have always kind of like not felt a book initially and put it aside, and it's taken me like a year to read it. Finally, I finish it, and I'm like, great. The same thing apply, and then I've kind of applied that mentality um, to podcasting, to content development. Like I had a podcast called Revenue Diaries, and I did it for a year, and I stopped because it wasn't fulfilling anymore. I got what I wanted out of it, and I did 60 interviews, and it's done. Past me would have said, you have to keep doing it. You have to keep grinding. You have to keep pushing stuff out. Present me is,
Hmm.
you know what? If I'm not growing through it, and I'm unfulfilled, I'm not going to keep doing it. And
Hmm.
that applies to a lot of things. Like that, it can apply to tactics. It can apply to messaging. It can, and particularly to marketing. There's one more, which is I I used to not put too much value into product marketing, where I didn't really invest in it at Lessonly. It's not something that I talked about that regularly. And I learned pretty quickly at Lessonly and even at Seismic now is that product marketing is crucial to any high growth software company. And that's something that I've changed as well, which is because I don't have the experience in it, it's harder for me to understand, but it's crucial to business. So you don't have to keep grinding if you don't feel it, no matter what you're doing, no matter what it's up to you. And you kind of said that about Gary, right? And then, which he would still disagree with, I'm guessing. And then it's product marketing is crucial to the success of a
Yeah.
software company.
Those are good. Yeah, I struggle with the book one as well. I want to give every book, like all humans, a
Yeah,
chance, but some just don't deserve
no,
that chance.
exactly.
So, second question. Second question. There's a movie called Inception. Whether you watch it or not, it's all about these people going in each
Yep.
other's dreams and incepting ideas. So then they wake up and they're like, "Oh, my idea is to sell my company or whatever." So, if I gave you the ability to go in the minds of every marketer on this planet and incept one idea in their mind, so they wake up tomorrow and whatever idea, belief you incept, they act out as if it's their own. And the world then changes because of that. What is your one idea that you incept?
Think like a customer. I mean, it's all experience. Like we've talked about it from the very beginning. Uh, it's all about the experience. Like your customer is your
Hmm.
best salesperson, and you can't have great customers unless you have great experiences.
Which I would argue could be synonymous with empathy. Think
Absolutely.
like your customer, put yourself in
Absolutely.
their shoes.
Absolutely.
I love that. I love that. That would be a very cool world within
It
marketing
would
if
be.
everybody applied that. So, final question is, what is one thing outside of business and marketing that you do that when you come back to do business and marketing, you can do it better? So, for me, it's every morning I meditate for 15 minutes. And when I go to work, then I'm just better because of it. What is that for you?
Uh, Exercising. I run or bike. I'm Peloton user. You could Kyle Lacy on Peloton. It's my name, which probably isn't safe.
Find him.
No, I run and bike every morning. So I'm
Wow.
at least cardio between 45 minutes and an hour a day, 5 days a week.
That's really that, and that helps you just perform better,
It helps
think
me. It helps
clearer.
me think. It helps me get out of my head. Keeps me healthy. I know. Um, I wish I didn't like IPAs as much as I did because it helps me on the IPA front. But no, it helps me clear my mind for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then you can have one or two extra IPAs that night for sure. I feel you. Well, thank you, Kyle. This is the last part of the segment where you can kind of plug anything, whether it's anything going on at Seismic, anything your LinkedIn, anything you plug here, I'll put into the show notes for our 3 to 4 listeners still
Yeah, I
with
mean,
us.
we seismic.com. From an enablement standpoint, if you have sales teams that you need content management, buyer engagement, training and coaching, we're the platform for it. And then LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Kyle Lacy. I probably don't need to say that, do I? And then Twitter. So
No, I'll put
LinkedIn's a
it.
little bit more professional. Twitter's a little bit more personal.
Okay. Wow. That's cool. I've been hearing a lot about, well, a lot of the people I interview have that kind of duality going. They got LinkedIn
Yeah.
and Twitter. I've yet to jump in the Twitter
Love it.
world
I love
fully.
it.
So
I've been on
I'll have
Oh,
to.
let's just check real fast before we sign off here. I have been on
You and
Twitter.
Jack Dorsey were a
No,
top.
not quite. When did I join? January 2008. It's a long
Wow.
time.
That, yeah, I was like 13 at that time, but all right. So we'll move forward. Not to date you at all. Sorry, Kyle.
How old
That
was
was
I?
not correct of me.
2008. I think I was 22 maybe, give or take.
Wow. Wow. That's cool. That's cool. Well, thank you, Kyle, for coming on the show. I appreciate your time, and the wisdom you shared with me is definitely going to change my career and my
Yay.
life. So I
My
appreciate that.
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And this is the end of the podcast.